Hi everyone, I am CS Surbi Punchi, Indirect Tax Expert at ClearTax, and today we all gathered here to understand about how to handle notices for the ITC mismatch. But before we even start our today's session, I just want to check if you all are able to hear me or not. So if you are able to hear me, just say hi on the chat box. Great. So it seems like everyone is able to hear me. So with this, we'll just start our today's session, which is on how to handle notices for ITC mismatch. So before even talking about the ITC mismatch, the one of the important thing which we all should understand is about the notices. Like when exactly we receive the notices, what exactly is notice? So the first question comes in like what is exact notice? Then the second important question is that why we even get the notices from the department. And the third part is about the ITC mismatch. That when exactly and what are the main reasons when the department actually raises the notices and what exactly we should do for that. There could be two ways. One is that okay, we receive the notices and then replying to the department. Or the second thing is how we can prevent from getting the notices. So we'll be discussing on both the point, like how we can actually prevent ourselves. What are the things which we should make sure while we are looking into all of the information, while we are filing our returns, whenever we are giving any information or sharing any information with the department. So with this, we'll just start. So here there are very common reasons that when we actually receive the GST notices. So we'll talk about that. So if we first talk about what is notice under GST. So this is just a kind of a communication which we receive from the GST authority, where they talk about that okay, this is something there could be a show cause notice where they're saying okay, we found certain discrepancies. Now tell me, like why we should not like ask for the interest, or why should not we not ask for the penalty, or why should not you pay the tax payables and all. Right? So here, if we look into the common ground, the reason why the department is even issuing the notices. So one of the things is where there is an inconsistency. So today we actually share some sort of information with the department, and obviously when it comes to receiving the notices, they have some information. They are going to use that information for their analysis purpose, and basis that they are going to give us the notices whenever they feel okay there is something which can result in the loss of the revenue of the department. Right? So there they are going to raise the notices. Now, few example could be whenever they see there is a mismatch between your GST 1 and GST 3B, they will raise the notice. So whenever they see there is a discrepancies between the ITC which is appearing in 2B with what is actually coming in your GST 3B, they will raise the notice. Whenever they see the discrepancies between your GST 1 and the e-way bill, or the data which was present in the e-invoicing but what you actually have shown in GST 1, or it could be between the ICE gate, the ITC which was available as per the ICE gate on respect in respect of import of goods and what is actually claimed by you in your GST 3B. So whenever there are some inconsistency, whenever there is a mismatch between different sources of data, that is the one main reason when you actually whenever you get the notices. Then the other reason could be in delay in filing. So whenever you delay in filing, it could be a GST 1, it could be a GST 3B, it could be any other kind of return like GST 6 or 7 or 8, whatever is applicable to you. Whenever there is a delay in filing of your GST returns, in that case again you will see that the department is going to raise the notice to you. And why would they even raise the notices? Because obviously, in such cases, you were liable to pay the interest if you had made the payment, you have delayed in making the payment, or there would be late fees. Though late fees is automatically calculated by the portal itself. So since it is done by the portal itself, you don't have to, and in fact, department is not going to raise the notice because they have already recovered the amount from you. But when it comes to interest and all, they will definitely go ahead and raise the notice to you. Then there could be a non-payment. So there can be a liability which is appearing in maybe your GST 1, but you have made a short payment in your GST 3B. In such case, you will see that you are going to receive the notice from the department. It could be the excess ITC claim or maybe excess refund which you have claimed from the department. Then also you receive the notice. Or maybe you have taken the fake registration. Right? In such case, and we would have heard a lot about the I would say the fake invoices and all, right. So in such case also the department may come up and raise a notice. Similarly, when there is a case where you have not taken the registration but you are liable to take the registration, in such case also you would see that department may come up and raise a notice. Some of you are saying that there is some voice issue. Is this happening with everyone, or it's just with few of you? Okay. I think this is with few of you. So in such case, I would just say if you can just refresh it, maybe then it will be clear to everyone. But still, in case this is not happening, just ping me on the chat box so that I can then make sure from my side that everything is okay. Alright, so here I was first talking about the most common reason. Right, so you would have also heard, right? Like whenever you see a discrepancy between your GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B, and why could there be a discrepancy? So, one important part, and where we always get confused, which we should actually understand, is there are chances that there can be a difference in GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. And why would there be a difference? Because there can be certain information which is appearing in 3B but not in GSTR 1. One particular example could be if I just talk about reverse charge liability, right? So reverse charge liability, if let's say if I have to pay the taxes, right? So if I have to, let's say there's a reverse charge liability where the recipient is liable to pay the taxes, I'm going to show that in my GST 1, I will be showing the taxable value, I will be showing the tax amount too. But when it comes to filing my GST 3B, I will be showing taxable value which will be forming part of my turnover, but I will not show the tax amount over there. So my tax amount will not come over there. So in such case, there will be discrepancy, but anyhow, when the department also compare this report, right, they make sure that they don't consider the reverse charge liability while looking into the GSTR 3B. So in which, in short, if I just say, we always have to make sure that there is a proper comparison. So whenever I'm even comparing my GST 1 with my GST 3B, I should properly compare whether the values are correctly coming or not. And for that, if you want to actually see whether values are coming correctly or not, in that particular case, you have to do apple to apple comparison, which means whatever is coming in GST 1 and also coming in 3B, then only we have to compare it. If there are certain information which is part of one but not the other, we should not compare that. For example, in 3B, there is an inward supplies which is liable to reverse charge, which is a kind of liability you have to pay on purchases. We all know that this will not form part of GST 1, so we don't even have to compare that. Right? So we always have to compare which are common in both of these things and then see whether it is exactly a matching or not. And if it is not matching, just make sure you corrected file or you correctly file that. You make an amendment, maybe you make an adjustment in 3B or 1, whatever is correct. So accordingly, you have to make the adjustments over there. But whenever you're looking into it, you have to make sure that there is no difference. Because if there is a difference, department will definitely come up and raise a notice. Now, a few of us always keep on saying, right, that yes, there can be a discrepancy. And one reason could be the department don't allow you to put the negative values in your GSTR 3B, due to which there can be certain credit note which was issued to the unregistered person and it was an interstate supply. So I was not able to show that in my 3B, but I was able to show in my GSTR 1. So there would be definitely the difference between these two. But if you now again ask me, I would say anyhow, see the liability which is coming in GSTR 1 is more than the liability which you have, the liability which you have shown in GSTR 1 is actually less as compared to the taxes which you have paid in your GSTR 3B. So in such case, department anyhow is not going to raise any notices because there is no revenue loss to the department, right? So in such case, you won't be getting the notices, but there would be a month. Let's say now after 4 5 months, finally you got certain supplies in that particular state and you have adjusted that credit note because there was some unadjusted credit note. You now have adjusted it. In such case, in that month you may see differences, right? So if there's some differences, just again make sure cumulatively when you're looking into that there is no difference. If that's the case, you're fine. So even if you receive the notices, you just have to reply to the department that yes, I know there's a differences, but this differences is because of this reason. I've already made the correction. There was no question of interest or the liability because this is something I've already paid to the department earlier in my previous written period. Right? So this is something which we should always make sure. Now, when it comes to the ITC part, because our main today focus is on the ITC part. Now, when we are looking into the ITC part, right, when exactly the department even raise the notices, like why even it is important when we look into the ITC part. So here, if we talk about the ITC, Today, we all know that the department is focusing on our ITC rather than focusing on the supplier. They are more focused on the recipient. The recipient should not claim ITC if there is a mistake done by the vendor. That is what they are trying to focus on. Now, I will give you a few examples, and this is very relevant when it comes to even how we file our GSTR 3B today, and how are we even looking into our GSTR 2B. So, let me talk about a few examples. Now, when we just go back to 2017-18, right, when the GST was launched, that time in the initial month, we didn't even have GSTR 2A or 2B. There was nothing present, and we were just going ahead and claiming the ITC in 3B. So that was a form which was given, and we were just filing it. We were not comparing any ITC with the 2A or the 2B. Then after a point of time, they come up with the GSTR 2A, and they're like, okay, it is again just for a viewing facility. You don't have to worry about. Still, the process which you are following for claiming ITC, you can just go ahead and keep on claiming the ITC. Then after some point of time, they just come up and they say, okay, you can claim ITC, but you start looking into your GSTR 2A and I will be allowing you some provisional credit. So you can claim extra ITC, but only up to 20%, provided that is available in your books of account. Then they further reduce this 20% limit to 10%, and then they reduce this 10% limit to 5%. And now finally, when we look into it, what is the current provision? So today, when we look into the current provision, the final thing over here is that we have to look into the GSTR 2B form. There is no provisional limit which is given. If some ITC available in GSTR 2B, then only I can go ahead and claim in my GSTR 3B. Otherwise, I cannot go ahead and claim the ITC in my GSTR 3B. So I have to look into my GSTR 2B before even filing my GSTR 3B for claiming any ITC. So I cannot directly go with my purchase register or my, I would say, books of account. I can directly say, okay, this is the information, this is the total ITC available as per my books of account, and I'm going to go ahead and claim in my GSTR 3B. That we cannot do. Now question is, okay, in my GSTR 2B there is an X amount. Can I directly go and just take the ITC which is available in my GSTR 2B? I will again say no, you cannot. If I today say that whatever the ITC coming in 2B, can I directly go ahead and claim that ITC in my GSTR 3B? The answer is again no, you cannot do that. You have to do the reconciliation between your 2B and your purchase register. After doing the reconciliation, only you will be allowed to claim some ITC in GSTR 3B correctly. But again, because there's a bigger challenge which is actually coming up, and there are a lot of queries which are even coming up. So when you look into the queries which is coming up, then today, if we look into our GSTR 3B, like how exactly we are reporting in GSTR 3B is really very important. So one of the point which I was even mentioning that how we can prevent from getting the notices when it comes to claiming of the ITC, right? So for that also you have to make sure that how you are actually filing your GSTR 3B. Because if you're not filing your GSTR 3B correctly, definitely you are going to receive the notices, and then to explain that to the department will again become a very tedious job, because here they are going to compare with 2B, and then there will be a lot of 100 other things which will keep on coming up, and then you have to keep on explaining each and everything to them. Now, the point is how exactly government will look into. See, there are the previous returns, right? When it comes to previous return, obviously there would be a mismatch and all. You have to explain them. Let's actually talk from current return period, or let me talk from the at least when this new provision started, they started become applicable, or how the government have come up with the changes in the return period August 2022. Now let's talk about the changes they have done in GSTR 3B from August 2022. And not only that, we'll also talk about the changes which was done by the GSTN, which is done recently. In fact, in this return period itself, they have made some changes with respect of how they're populating the value in the GSTR 3B from 3B form from your GSTR 2B. So we should also understand that, because that is one important point which will be relevant when it comes to the issuance of the notices by the department. Now let's talk about that and how we can make sure that we don't receive the notices whenever there is a mismatch. So here, even there was a circular which was issued, there was a notification which was issued, and then after that they have also issued a circular explaining how to even report when it comes to the ITC in our GSTR 3B. Now first let's look into 3B form. How exactly our 3B forms looks like today, right? If I look into our GSTR 3B form, Our 3B form is mainly categorized into three part, right? I would say actually not three part, four part, I would say. GSTR 3B form, we do have a liability part, we do have the ITC part, we have certain information for the declaration purpose too. Let's just focus on the ITC part today. Now, when I focus only on the ITC part of your GSTR 3B, there is something called Table 4. Right? So, Table 4 is mainly in respect of your ITC when it comes to your GSTR 3B filing. Now, when we look into table number 4 is further categorized as table 4A, table 4B, table 4C, and then 4D. When we look into 4A, it talks about the ITC claim. Whatever you have to claim, just show in 4A. Then 4B talks about, okay, whatever you have to reverse it, just reverse in 4B. Then 4C just say that it's just a net figure. 4A minus 4B is equal to 4C, just a net figure. This is an amount which is going to sit in your electronic credit ledger. Right? This is an amount if you have claimed extra, whatever is coming in 4C. If there is something extra claim, you have to pay at the interest over there. Right? So 4C is very relevant because this is going to sit in my electronic credit ledger. Then comes your 40. 40 is for declaration purpose, and the declaration, there are mainly two parts over there. One is in the declaration where you are trying to claim an ITC which was reversed in the previous month, but now you want to claim that in the current month. And then there is another thing which we talks about ineligible ITC as per the 2B itself, where there is a difference in the POS or there is a difference because of the time bar thing, right? Where you can't claim ITC. That is a declaration purpose which is coming and sitting in your table number 4D. Now you will be like, okay, we understand this entire form. What is the change and what exactly we have to do in order to avoid these notices? So one important part which we should understand that today we have 4A and 4A also is categorized in different part like 4A1 which is import of goods, then import of services, then your inward supply liable to RCM, then there is some ITC which are going to claim from your IST registration, and then there is all other ITC which is 4A5. GSTN auto-populates your entire table 4A, right? Basis the values which is coming in your GSTR 2B, right? That is there. Whatever they can fill in, they fill in basis your GSTR 2B. Obviously, some of the information they cannot fill in. Just for example, if there is an import of service, that information is not there in 2B, so they will not fill that information. If we talk about there is an RCN liability, I'm liable to pay because I have purchased from an unregistered person, and there that particular transaction attracts reverse charge, that information they cannot auto-populate. I have to manually add in, I have to put the liability, and accordingly I can even claim that ITC. Right? So some information they cannot, but where exactly they can look into the transaction. If we look into the 4A5, right? So 4A5 talks about the ITC which I am going to claim in respect of the purchases I have made from the registered suppliers. This information is actually available in my GSTR 2B. So if this is the information available in my GSTR 2B, this is something which I am going to populate in table number 4A5. Now when I populate this information in table number 4A5, how exactly the government is going to populate? 4A5 is something which is coming from my GSTR 2B. 2B have other informations like import of goods also, they have some like the registered RCM thing also. The government says that hey, I do have 2B. In 2B, I will take all the supplies you have done from the registered supplies because that breakup is anyhow available. Now, when you get this all these supplies from the registered supply, this is again divided into two parts. One is ITC available, another is ITC not available. ITC not available, anyhow I don't care about that much because this is the ITC, you are not going to claim it. So this information I will directly put in your table number 4D2. This is only for the declaration purpose and I am going to put that in table number 4D2. Right? I'm like, okay, this is just for declaration purpose. I'm not claiming any ITC on that. Then they say, as per your GSTR 2B, you do have a section called ITC available. Now, when you have a section called ITC available, inside that also you will see that there can be certain supplies where you are liable to pay the taxes under the reverse charge. Right? So, for the reverse charge, they're like, okay, wherever the reverse charge flag is, why I will remove that entries. That entry will go and sit in my table number 4A3. So just remove that entry from there, right? Other than reverse charge, value coming in my GS tier 2B, which is ITC available, I am going to put in table number 4A5. So in short, if I look into table number 4A5, they are saying that I am going to populate this information from your GS tier 2B, and in 2B I will look into the ITC available part, which is in respect of purchases from the registered person, and inside that also I will remove the RCM transition, which is reverse transition, and the difference I am going to show in table number 4A5. Now, earlier we used to literally face one problem that when the government used to auto-populate the value in your 3B from your GST 2B, we do have the invoices, we do have a debit note, we do have a credit note, right? They used to show this invoices and debit note in 4A5, but when it comes to credit note, they used to show this as a reversal, right? And when they were showing the reversal, there was a literally lot of challenges which we were facing, because whenever we filed GST 9, there was another set of problem which we used to face. Maybe even talk about what was the problem, because now we also have to make sure that how exactly we are filing our GST 9. Because if that is not filed properly, again there are high chances that we are going to receive the notices from the department. We'll come to that part. But now let's assume, because this is a change already made by the government from this written filing, and we should actually do this because this is the correct way of doing or filing our GST 3B also. So we do have invoices plus debit note minus credit note from the registered supply that should go and set in table number 4A5. Right? So we're like, okay. So what exactly the department is saying, that whatever the ITC which is reflecting in your GST 2B as an eligible ITC other than reverse charge from the registered person showing table number 4A5. The value appearing in 4A5 should match with the value which is coming in my 2B. Obviously, there are chances that there can be differences. But let me ask you a very simple question from all of you. That if I am saying that as per my GST 2B, there is something called ITC available, can I go ahead and directly claim the entire ITC? Maybe you can reply on the chat box. So question is that if you have some ITC which is appearing in my GST 2B as an ITC available, can I directly go ahead and claim that ITC in my GST 3B? I could see the answer from Kailash. Kailash says no, Mukul says no, Bhavin says no, Satish says no, and Nandish says he should match with books. Sukanya says no, Arun says no, Sai says so. Everyone is saying no, which is the correct answer. So we are saying we cannot claim it, and definitely that's a correct answer. But question is now, if something is appearing in my GST 2B, should I show that value in my table number 4A5? If something is appearing in my 2B, irrespective of whether I have to claim the ITC or I don't have to claim ITC, should I show that value in my table number 4A5 or not? As per the latest changes. I could see the answers from Sachin. Sachin says yes, Nandi says no, Anu says yes. What about others? Sai says yes. Okay. So here, if we just look into that, if you ask me, if we are looking into 4A5, the 4A5 should exactly match with the value which is going to appear in my GST at 2B. Whatever is coming in my 2B, right, other than the reverse charge, I'm removing that reverse charge for now, and I'm talking about the ITC available as per 2B, that should match with the value which is coming in my 4A5. Obviously, we'll be adding more thing to this, but that value should always match, right? That's the first thing. But now the next question would be, okay, but I can't claim the entire ITC. Obviously, there was certain ITC which was appearing in my GST 2B, but I can't claim that in my current month since I have not received the goods and the services, I have not fulfilled my section 62 condition. What to do in that case? So for that, the department, in fact, they have issued the circular where they have clarified, see, the value in 4A5 should match with the 2B. There is no problem. But we understand that you cannot claim the entire ITC. There could be reasons like it is covered under block credit, which is 17 subsection 5, where you cannot claim the ITC since here it is covered as an ineligible ITC, which is 17.5, and we are not permitted to claim the ITC, which is a kind of a permanent reversal, right? So if it is covered under 17.5, and but when obviously we look into the government portal, right? When we look into GST 2B, that will be categorized as ITC available because they don't know about this, right? They don't know that this is going to cover under 17.5 as per your business, right? Because for one business it could be eligible, but maybe for the other business it could be ineligible. Then the question is what to do in that case. So here the department says that see, you have 2B, match that 2B with your purchase account. Now, when you have matched it, right? Now you come to know, okay, this is something which is missing in my purchase register. So if something is missing in your purchase register, which means you can't claim ITC in the current month, but maybe in future you can claim it, right? In such case, this is a kind of a temporary reversal. So it's missing in the purchase register for the current month, but maybe in future you can claim it because you may get the invoice and then finally you have to claim the ITC. Put this information as a temporary reversal. And when I'm saying put this information as a temporary reversal, show that value in table number 4B2. So that in future, whenever you finally get the ITC, you will show in 4A5. Right? So what government is doing? Now what happened? April month, let me give you one simple example. There was month of April, and when it comes to the month of April, you actually have received one invoice from your vendor. That vendor is very compliant, and let's say 31st March that person has raised I would say 30th of April that person has raised the invoice, and that person has also filed his GSTR 1 on time. So when you looked into that particular GSTR 2B for the month of April, on 14th of May you were able to see that particular invoice, but you received that goods, let's say on 1st of May. So you when you received this goods on 1st May, you recorded this entry in your books of account on 1st May. So when you recorded this entry in, I would say in the month of May, you are going to even claim the ITC only when you file your GSTR 3B for the month of May. So when you are trying to file your GSTR 3B for the month of April, what will happen? This ITC, let's say the total tax amount was 100 rupees. So in 4A5, you will see 100 rupees, right? But you cannot claim ITC in that particular month. So government says that, okay, I understand because now you have matched it and you know this is something which is missing in your purchase register and you cannot claim the ITC in the current month. They say that you put this amount as a temporary reversal. So you have to put this amount in table number 4B2 as a temporary reversal as 100, so that when you look into table number 4C, the net figure is 0. So you're not claiming any ITC. But for the declaration purpose, you have to put that value in 4A5 also and put that value as a temporary reversal in 4B2. So the net figure which is going to sit in your electronic credit ledger, there you have not claimed any ITC. But for reporting purpose, how exactly you are reporting, you have to show, you have to reverse, and then net ITC is 0. Right? Now the question is, okay, we got it. Like, but how is this relevant from the notice purpose? Because that's again our important question, right? Because we are learning about, okay, when are we going to even receive the notice from the department? I said this is how you have to declare. Think about, you say, okay, if I can't claim ITC, I'm not going to show in 4A5, I'm not going to show in table number 4B2. What will happen? That could be one question which we'll have in our mind, right? What if the second month? Second month, finally you have received the goods. Finally, you received the goods. And now when I was trying to file my GSTR 3B for the month of May, obviously this ITC will not be even there in my GSTR 2B, right? So if this ITC is not there in my GSTR 2B for the month of May, but now I am eligible to claim ITC because I have received this good and it was there in my previous month, right? So what I am going to do, this value will come in table number 4A5 automatically when the government going to auto populate. That's a question to all of you. Whether this 100 rupees ITC will come and sit in my table number 4A5 automatically when I try to file my GSTR 3B for the month of May. Whether this value will come or it will not come. Same example, April month I received an invoice from my vendor. That person was very compliant. He filed his GST1 on time, and in month of April I could see this particular entry was coming in my 2B, but I have not claimed ITC, so I showed in 4A5 and 4B2. Now in the next month, finally I received the purchase invoice, and when I receive the purchase invoice, I know I am eligible to claim that ITC. The question is that when the government auto populate the value in your GST 3B from your GST 2B, whether this entry will automatically be reflected or not. I could see the answer from Deepa. Deepa says no, Guru Saran says no, Fari says no, Kailash says no, Paresh says not automatically, Janvi says no, Bhavin says no, Vijay says no, Sachin says no. So everyone is saying no, and which is again the correct answer. Obviously, how would government know that this was an ITC which you have reversed in the previous month? right? So government would never know that. So which means it will not automatically come in table number 4A5. What I am going to do, obviously we have to claim the ITC, right? So we have to punch in this information manually. So finally in the next month, when actually I know that this is an entry which is coming in my purchase register but not in my 2B, but still I am allowed to claim the ITC. So in 4A5, I am going to add up this value. There would be some value which is as per 2B, but I will add up this value over here also. But now the question is, if I add this value in table number 4A5, this value in May month, I have added it manually. In such case, this value will not match. The value which is going to appear in 4A5 will not match with my GST at 2B. Then what is the purpose, right? Then why I have done all that process of that adding up, then reversing up? Because now, if I look into my GST at 3B, 4A5, the value will always be greater than the value which is going to appear in my GST at 2B. So for that, the government says, wait, you have to claim ITC. I am giving you a section in 4A5, you just add that value, but I am also introducing one more row over here, which is just for the declaration purpose. So now I have introduced one row which is 4D1. And that 4D1 talks about the ITC which you are reclaiming, which was reversed in the previous return periods. Right? So here the government says that 100 rupees, while you are filing your GST 3B for the month of May, you show that value in 4A5, but at the same time, you also have to show that value in table number 4D1. So in table number 4D1, you are going to show the same value. Now, how the government is going to reconcile these two things? Now, it's very easy for the government. What government is going to look into it, that the value which is coming in your 4A5, whether that value is matching with the amount which is coming in your 2B plus the amount which is there in 4D1. If this is matching, which means you are compliant, there is no problem. Because not now you are not claiming any extra ITC. But if that's not happening, then it means there is a problem. And in that case of if there is a differences in such case, right? Definitely you are going to receive the notice from the department. So further, even now when you look into the government tax comparison report, right? Today government already give you the tax comparison reports also, which is 2B versus 3B. There also, when you go ahead and look into this, they have given this as a part of tax comparison also, and you can see there is a difference over there. And what exactly they are trying to check over there? The value which is coming in table number 4A5 minus the value which is coming in table number 4D1 should always be equal to 2B. If it is matching, then you are going ahead like right. You have like correctly shown or reported the information. But if that's not the case, then you are going to receive the notice from the department. So this is one important part. So that was the main reason we are saying how exactly are we reporting. Now I talk about temporary reversal. But obviously there can be a cases because we said okay we have added in 4A5 and a 4A5 talks about all the ITC which was available as per my GST at 2B. You may always say that okay this part I could understand. What about my ineligible ITC where I can't actually claim the ITC at all? Maybe because of 17.5, maybe because of reversal because of rule number 42 or reversal because of rule number 43. What exactly should I do in such cases? Right? So this is the kind of permanent reversal. You're not going to reclaim that ITC at all. So whenever that is the case, the department says that in case of the permanent reversal, you show that value in table number 4B1 itself. Right? So whenever there is a permanent reversal, show in 4B1. Wherever you think that in future you can reclaim that ITC, just put that value in table number 4B2. So this is how, when it comes to the reporting of an ITC in GSTR 3B, this is something which we should always keep in mind, that how exactly we are reporting this information in our GSTR 3B. And this is one important part which we should make sure that this is matching. And again, in 4A5, earlier we used to put the credit note as a part of table number 4B2, but now don't show credit note as a part of 4B2, rather always show that as a net figure. So while you are reporting the value in your GST 2B, always report a net of credit note value only in 4A5. So just show invoices plus debit note minus credit note when it comes to reporting of your ITC in your table number 4A5. So this is like one of the reason when you are going to receive the notice. So it becomes very important that how you are even filing your GST 3B. Because see, whenever you receive notice, right, it means you are giving or sharing some sort of information with the department. Basis that information, only they would know that okay, there is something wrong happening, and they will be raising some notices to you. So this is one part. Now, not only the purchases from the registered person, there can also be a cases, right, that where You may even see the import of goods. Right? So when it comes to import of goods, we all know that the taxes are paid by us itself at the ICE gate. When we pay at the ICE gate, automatically we file the bill of entry and we pay the taxes. When we pay the taxes, this information also gets and appears in our GST at 2B. When this information gets appeared in 2B, accordingly we can go ahead and claim the ITC my GST at 3B. But there can be chances that I have filed bill of entry, but still I have not received the goods. And since I have not received the goods, I cannot claim the ITC in the current month. So there can always be discrepancies over there. But there can be another important part where we have seen there can be some technical glitches because of that. I have filed a correct bill of entry, but that information is not appearing in my 2B. Right? So question is, can I still go ahead and claim the ITC in my GST at 3B? Let me ask you this question. There's an ITC in respect to the import of goods, and the question is, it is not appearing in my GST at 2B. Can I still go ahead and claim the ITC in my GST at 3B? I could see the answer from Arun. Arun says yes. Gansham says no. Mukul says yes. Tarkeshwar says yes. Sachin says yes. Panesh says no. Vijay says yes. So I'm getting a mixed answers over here, and I think which is even correct. So see, I'm getting mixed answers. Some says yes, some says no. If you ask me, can I go ahead and claim the ITC in my GST at 3B, even if that value is not appearing in my GST at 2B? Right? And I'm assuming other conditions are met. I have paid properly taxes to the government. There was a proper bill of entry filed. I received goods. All the conditions are met. But it is not appearing in 2B. Only that was the problem. I would say yes. You can still go ahead and claim the ITC. Why? Because when it comes to the restriction, right? The restriction was only in respect to the supplies which we have received from the registered person. The restriction was not in respect of the import of good, because here I myself is paying the taxes to the government and I have fulfilled all my conditions, so I should be allowed to claim the ITC also, right? So I would say yes, we are allowed to claim ITC, and we can always go ahead and claim the ITC. But the question is, will you be receiving the notices in such case? Obviously, right? There are high chances that whenever the ITC which you are claiming in your GST 3B is not matching with the ITC which is reflecting in 2B, you will definitely receive the notice. So here one another important part, because we always keep on saying how we can prevent it, right? So first part we say that when it comes to supply from a registered person, better while you're filing GST 3B, you're filing it very properly. You're correctly showing the value in table number 4A5 so that you don't receive the notice. And even if you're receiving, you will be able to properly explain this to the department, right? Second part, we were saying in respect of import of goods, we're like, yes, even if it is not appearing in 2B, I can still go ahead and claim the ITC. But here, just to prevent ourselves, we all know that there is a facility which is already provided on the GST portal, which is in respect of fetching that information, fetching the bill of entry information from the ICE gate when it is not appearing at GST at 2B. So the always the good part over here is that we should reconcile the bill of entry information which is available as per us, as per our books of account, with what is appearing in 2B, and if something is missing, just fetch that information from the ICE gate so that that missing information also start appearing in GST at 2B, and accordingly when you have claimed ITC in 3B, there is no problem at all. So that's the thing which we should always do. We should always reconcile it and fetch that information so that we don't even receive any notice in such case. Right? So this was like another problem which we always face when it comes to the ITC, the claiming of the ITC in respect of the import of goods. Then the next part is, right? The next part over here is that reverse charge thing, right? When it comes to the reverse charge, we would have again received like lot of notices when it comes to the differences in the liability we have paid in the reverse charge and the ITC we have claimed it. Now, here also, if you ask me that what is the thing which we should keep in mind, right, while we are even filing 3B, because all the information we are only sharing to the government. This is something which we have only reported to the department and they're just looking into that and then accordingly raising the notices, and most of the things are automated by them also, right? So they already has a lot of reports and basis that they are raising the notices to us. Now, in this case also, when you look into the liability, because RCM liability we are already paying in 3B form and we show in table number 3.1D that this is the RCM liability. There are people who claims ITC in the same month, in the month in which they have even paid the liability. And again, the next question is that can I go ahead and claim the ITC in respect of reverse charge liability in the same month, or do I have to always claim in the next month? I could see the answer from Guru Sharan, who says yes, we can claim it. Paresh says yes, we can claim it. Nandi says yes, same month. Vijay says yes. Tanvi says next month. Bhavin says yes, same month. Mukul says same month. Kalpesh says same month. So everyone is saying yes, we can always go ahead and claim the ITC in the same month, and which is actually the correct answer also. Right? When it comes to the reverse charge ITC and the liability, right? The liability can be declared in the same month, and the ITC can also be cleared in the same month, right? It's because earlier when we go into back into the service tax regime and all, right, there was a case that the liability has to be paid in the first month and the ITC can only be claimed in the next month. But when it comes to GST, that confusion that was clarified, and they have clearly mentioned that you can always go ahead and claim the ITC in the same month, only provided that RCM liability always needs to be discharged using cash, right? You cannot like discharge the RCM liability using ITC. So that was the only thing which you have to make sure. But and that is anyhow automated by the system itself. So they automatically put that in the cash form only. So I can only make the payment through cash. I can't utilize ITC while discharging my RCM liability. So now the question is that okay, and this is the practical problem which we face, right? Many times we may even make mistake while we are showing the liability and showing the ITC. Some people follow the practice of showing the liability in the first month and claiming the ITC in the next month. Though it's always recommended that showing the same month itself, don't put in the next month, because then you will keep on having the differences in the value which you're showing in table number 3.1D with the value which you are going to show in table number 4, right? In table number 4, you show that import of services, which is again RCM, and also the inward supply liable to reverse charge, which is table number 4B2 and 4B3. So the value which is appearing in 4B2 and 4B3 should always be less than the value which is going to be appearing in table number 3.1D. So this is the another check which we should always do, that the ITC you are claiming should not be more than the ITC which is there or the liability which you have actually paid. Right? It can be less, and the less could be because maybe there was some RCM liability, let's say rent a cap thing, where you have paid the RCM liability, but you are not allowed to claim ITC because it's a kind of block credit. So it can be less, but it cannot be more. So this is also the another thing which we should again make sure that the ITC which you are claiming in respect of the reverse charge liability is not more than the liability which you have paid. Right? Here again, you're not dependent on your suppliers. So, okay, let me ask you one simple question. When I talk about the RCM liability, because it could be in respect of import of services, anyhow it's from unregistered person and it's not appearing in my 2B, I can just show that. There is another liability which is inward supply liables to RCM. Now this can be in respect of purchases you have made from registered person. It could be in respect of the purchases you have made from the unregistered person. Right? It can be anything. My question is, that here, because it is from the registered person and unregistered person, I am going to show both this information in my gesture 3B. The main question is that because whenever the government talks about it, right? Let's say I made a purchase from a registered person. When I made the purchase from the registered person, this person has not reported this invoice in his GST 1. Right? This liability was under the reverse charge. I was liable. I, as a recipient, was liable to pay the taxes under the reverse charge. Supply was registered, but this person has not reported this invoice in his GST 1, and accordingly, this was not even coming in my GST 2B. But because I was liable to pay the taxes under reverse charge, I reported this liability in my table number 3.1D of GST 3B form. I paid the proper taxes also. Question to all of you is, can I go ahead and claim the ITC in respect of this supplies? I made a purchase from the registered person. When I made a purchase from the registered person, this liability was under the reverse charge, and when the liability was under the reverse charge, but this person was not compliant, he has not filed his GST 1, it was not appearing in my 2B. But I have properly, because obviously I have to pay the liability, so I have reported this correctly in table number 3.1D. My question is, can I go ahead and claim the ITC in respect of this supply? I could see the answer from Bhavin, who says yes, Sachin says yes, Vijay says yes, Farid says yes, Mukul says yes, Ghanshyam says yes, Janvi says yes, Gurucharan says yes, Lavanya says yes, Shobin says yes, Nishan says yes. So okay, everyone is saying yes. Right? So, and which is again the correct answer, right? Because here I was liable to pay the taxes to the government. I have paid the taxes, so I can accordingly go ahead and claim ITC. I'm not dependent on my supplier to pay the taxes on this transaction. So I can always go ahead and claim the ITC. But important part here is that yes, we can claim it. I'm not dependent. But one part which we should again make sure is that the liability which we are showing in table number 3.1D should always be more than the liability which is appearing in my GST to be under the reverse charge. And why would that be even the case? If my supplier is saying that this is a liability to be paid under the reverse charge by the recipient, then obviously I have to show that information in table number 3.1D. But obviously, I may have some purchases in respect of the from the unregistered person which was liable to reverse charge. So it can be greater, but it cannot be less, right? So there is another check which we should always make sure just to avoid this notices. And the another check is that the liability which we are going to show in table number 3.1D should always be more than the liability which is going to be appearing in my GST to be under the reverse charge thing. Right, so this is another check because if there is a mismatch here, again you may see that you are going to get some notices from the department. So here, these are the few cases. Similarly, because when we are talking, because we are just talking about the claiming of ITC, and these are few cases we are saying we may actually receive the notice from the department. So this is some check which we should always make sure while we are even filing GSTR 3. It should not be like blindly, okay, these are the values we have to put as per the PR. You should not do that. You should always make sure about all these checks also because there are always chances, high chances of manual changes or the manual interpretation, or I would say because of manual entry you have made certain mistakes, right? Now, I could see there is a question from Sobin who says, "What is supplier letter file status?" No problem, Sobin. We have to just see cumulatively, like at least for that year, that is more than what is appearing in my GST 2B. So there are chances that person may do it, right? So there, when even if we receive the notice, we will be in the condition to explain this to the assessing officer and clearly say, "Hey, see, I have already paid this liability, and I have already paid this liability in this particular month." So you should do a proper reconciliation. I will not say that you should not do a reconciliation. You should always run the reconciliation and keep a track or a document label that for this invoice I have paid the taxes in this, so that even if you receive the notice tomorrow by the department, you are in the position to explain them. So one another important part, because we are talking about notices. So see, it's not about that we see one thing is we are filing GST 3B, we are filing correctly, we are compliant, we are making sure our vendors are compliant and all. Right? We have done all this thing. But the question comes in, even after doing this, can we avoid notices? Right? Obviously, we are trying to avoid notices, and 90% will not receive notices because we have done all of this thing. But still, that does not mean that we will not receive notice at all. There are chances we may still get a notice. Right? We may get notice, but now the another part is if we receive the notice, we should be in a position to explain this to the department or the assessing officer, right? Because we cannot now, after receiving the notice, or we should wait for the notice. Okay, maybe after 2 years or 3 years, I finally receive the notice, and now I'm going to make all calculations, and now I will prepare the document according to the notice reply, right? That should not be the case. We should always make sure whatever I'm claiming in my GSTR 3B, that is correct. And what is the calculation trail for that? What are the documents against that? Right? So that even after 2 years, 3 years, right, whenever you receive the notice, even if you're not there, right, there is a person who understands that this is the thing and this is the calculation trail, everything was there. When you receive notice, you give this to the department. Hey, see, I understand this is the value which I have shown in 4A5 and this is the total documents against the same. You can verify it, and the ITC which I have claimed is actually correct. So you should always make sure you have proper calculation trail. Not only this, right? Even if today when I'm saying in 4A5, right? 4A5 I show that ITC which is related to my current month. Right? I always show that. I said that in 4A5 I will also show that ITC which was related to my previous month, but I have claimed in the current month, and at the same time I'm going to show that value in 41. Right? I will show that value also in 4A5. 4A5 will also consist of the deferred ITC, which means which was appearing in 2B, but I am not claiming ITC in the current month, will also show that value in 4A5. So you should actually have all that information. You should know that in 4A5 also, what was the value which was related to current month? What was the value which was related to previous month, but maybe same financial year? What was the value which was related to my previous month, maybe but for different financial year? What is the value which is a deferred ITC? You should actually have all calculation trail at a deeper way. Though you're not reporting that to the department, you're just reporting a value which is coming in 4A5. But just for your calculation trail, you should always have that the breakups and all, and that breakup should also have that information at a document level, so that tomorrow when you have to explain this to a department, you're able to explain, hey, this is an ITC which was deferred ITC, which I passed on to the next month. There's the ITC which is actually I have claimed, and this is coming in my current month. So that you don't have to worry about that, okay, after 5 years old, I received something and I have to reply to the department. You always have this calculation trail with you. You just have to give this to the department that I already have everything. You can just take this information. So this is something which we should always keep in our mind, so that while we are filing freebie, we have all this thing. Right? Similarly, there can be other cases, right, where we receive the notices. And the other cases could be in respect of maybe e-invoicing. And I will give you another thing, right? Many times we make this mistake, and many of us don't even understand like why we should do or why we should not do that. We know that e-invoicing is applicable to many of the taxpayer, and when e-invoicing is applicable as per the threshold limit, the thing is, we have generated e-invoice, we have generated proper IRN number, there was no problem. This got auto-populated in our GST1 also. But while we were filing GST1, we were like, okay, I just will go again with my sale register. I will override entire data. I will delete every data from my GST1, and then will again upload this information in my GST1 basis my sales register. What will happen in that case? There is an IRN number which is there, right? When there is an IRN number, that will be replaced, that will be removed from there. Now, when the recipient also sees in their gesture 2B, that person will not be able to see the IRN number, right? The problem over here is that whenever you make any changes in your GST1, the pre-populated GST1, there are high chances that again you will receive the notices. So it's always recommended that you always reconcile your draft GST1, which is prepared by the government, with your sale register, and only make the changes in respect of differences if you see any. If there's something where you missed generating iron, better you generate iron and then it will be pre-populated and then file it. Unless the deadline, if there's a deadline, then obviously it will be pre-populated only after 2 days. Then you can add that entry, right? Or if something where you felt ki, okay, this was cancelled but still appearing in my GST1, then you may actually, the ideal behavior is raise a credit note and generate an IRN number for that, so that the value, the information can be nullified. Rather than removing it, create a credit note and create an IRN number against the same, so that the transaction can get nullified rather than removing that entry. So these are some of the things which we should again keep in our mind when it comes to how are we reporting different transaction in our form itself, because this is the information which we are sharing with the department, right? So here again you may receive the notices if there are certain discrepancies over there. So this was certain examples, and again when it comes to e-way bill also, right? We may always keep on saying that okay, when it comes to e-way bill, we know that e-way bill is not mandatory for everything. There is a threshold limit which is given, and again, e-way bill is only in respect of movement of goods. When it comes to services, obviously we are not going to generate e-way bill. There are certain items which are exempted, and I am not actually required to generate e-way bill, right? So again, when you just see, right, you will be receiving notices even there is a discrepancy between e-way bill and GST1. But then again, the government see only at a high level. They will not. If there is a really very big difference, then only they are going to look into it, and they will also look into your nature of business, right? Basis all this, they will see that okay, if there is a difference, they will be raising the notice to you, and you have to explain it, right? But obviously, there are chances that there will be difference, and the reasons I told you, right? Good service is different. There could be threshold limit cut differences. Though most of us, right? If you today ask me, even if there is a threshold limit given, most of the time we always go ahead and generate that equivalent if it's a intrastate or an intrastate. Though for interstate, if in a vehicle, if it is more than 50,000, you have to generate it. But still, it's recommended to always generate the e-way in such case. Now the next part over here is about how we have to ensure it. So this is some examples we said, right? We should run certain validations, and there are also chances that many times we see that okay, the taxable value to tax rate is not equal to tax amount. Still we punch in something. We have shown some less amount over there. If that is the case, obviously you will see that there is something where the department will actually raise a notice to you. So in such cases, is in fact ClearDex also have a tool where we give you the health check summary. There's a Max dashboard where we give you the health check summary, your GST return filing status, the comparison report, the vendor compliance report. You can always look into all of these comparisons report. This will help you in making and avoiding the mistake. Right? One is obviously the post facto, another is pre facto. So if you try that you're not making any of this mistake, and if there is some differences over there, you can actually solve it before even going ahead and filing your returns, right? And not only this, post facto also it will give you all this report where you may save on working capitals also. Like sometimes what happens that you're like, okay, Anya, this is not going to impact my ITC and all, right? But this may impact your working capital, so it will also highlight certain things where your working capital can be saved. So this is certain insights which you may always get using this dashboard, where you may get the ITC utilization report, the credit accumulation report, and the RCM claim versus available, the ITC on import part, the filing tracker, if there is some tax inconsistency. So all of this you can see in this particular dashboards. And also on the ITC offset report, when I'm talking about ITC offset report, which is more of how you can optimize in a better way when it comes to setting of your ITC against the liability while you're filing your GSTR 3B. So this is already there, and while you're even filing GSTR 3B, right, we always try to optimize in a best optimized way so that you can save on paying that cash to the government. So that is already there, and you can even try using that. So these are some of the reports, some interactive dashboards, some insights which we already provide, which you can always use while you are preparing and make sure that there is no problem. Right? Now, because we also talk about this computation part, right? I just talked about okay, table 4 should be done in this way. The thing is that doing it manually makes this very cumbersome. If let's say I have 10 GS10 and I have to, because this activity again has to be done within a one particular interval, right? Between 14th to 20th, I have to do this. 14th, I'm getting 2B, and only after that, I will be reconciling my books of accounts with my 2B. I have to take all the actions and accordingly file my GST 3B for my all of the GSTs, right? So, in that case, this becomes very cumbersome, and here again, making a track of the ITC, which I am going to claim maybe in the next month whenever it gets matched with my GST 2B, because there can always be cases where my supplier are not complying. Though I had in my purchase register, but it was not appearing in my 2B. So I have to keep a track of the ITC. Right? I have to make sure that this was an ITC which was not appearing in my 2B this month. So I can't claim ITC in the current month, but maybe in the future months, right? I may get certain ITC. So here the ClearTax have already come up with a solution here, like where we'll run a reconciliation between your 2B and the PR, and your entire table 4 of GSTR 3B will be automatically be populated basis the reconciliation result and the actions taken by you. Right? So this will be auto-populated. Along with auto-populated, you also get a calculation trail. So each and every figure you will see what is the document behind this information. Right? So this will be done, and we'll also have a track of all the invoices. So what were the documents where you are not able to claim ITC, that was a deferred ITC, but maybe you will claim in the future. We'll have a track of all such documents. At the same time, if something was missing in your 2B in the current month, but you have to claim in the future month, we'll have a track of all such things. So you can always make use of that so that your entire process can be automated rather than you doing all manually. It can be automated and you don't have to worry about preparing and filing your GSTR 3B. So this is already there, and maybe we'll just take questions. If you have any queries, maybe you can ping on the chat box. So I will be happy to take all of your queries. And still, if some queries are left, then you can always mail us at gstsupport@clear.in. So that's our mail ID. So we're happy to answer all of your queries over there. I could see there is one question from, I think not a question but suggestion from Kailash is asking if we can just take a session on GST refund process on export. Yeah, Kailash, definitely we'll just do one thing. We'll also actually schedule one another session which will be on the entire GST refund process, and I think Hanumanta says if we can also add the sales which is made to SSD unit. Definitely, we'll have one session which will actually talk about the refund cases, because I think this is also a very important topic and we keep on facing a lot of things there. So we'll definitely have a session on this. We'll keep on posting you that what about for all the upcoming sessions which we are going to have. Another thing is from Brian who's asking if you can share the PPT. Yeah, Brian, you will be receiving this PPT after the session, and still in case you don't receive any PPT, just mail us at gstsuppport@clear.in. We'll happy to mail you the PPT over there. Another case is from Janvi, who is asking, sometimes vendors file GST1 return on time, but that time it is not reflected in a 2B. After 2-3 days, the same is reflected. Is it possible to claim the ITC based on vendor return that case? So, Janvi, I will say, see, if you ask me, like when it comes to 2B gets generated on 14th, and it is basis what is filed by vendor, right? So if vendor has, so if you were saying it is not appearing, that can be only the case that person has uploaded the transaction but not filed his return. So if person has only uploaded and not filed, then it will not be appearing in your 2B. And if it is not appearing in 2B, I would suggest not to claim that ITC, because that will result into the inconsistency and definitely you will receive the notice in that case. So there you have to just make sure whenever it is appearing in 2B. So I'm only talking about the supply you have made from the registered person. So only when it is appearing in 2B, you should go ahead and claim the ITC. Another question I'm getting from Shobin, who is saying, what if supplier GST is cancelled from the backdated, but we have claimed ITC with all the compliant? So I mean, say if it is cancelled from the backdated, right? But if you look into 2B, because that ITC will be appearing in your GST 2B. So if it is appearing in your GST 2B, that means that person has already filed his GST 3B. So whenever it is even with the backdated, right, the department don't cancel it for the returns it is filed. So they always cancel it from a particular date. So in such case, that is compliant. There is no problem because that vendor has properly filed it and also paid the taxes, right? So you don't have to worry about that because your 2B will not change because it's a kind of freezed thing. It will not change even if the GST registration of the supplier has been cancelled from the backdated. Another question from Kailash is asking, is it possible to revise the shipping bill wrongly filed by forwarder with little difference in GST? Yeah, Kailash, you can do that. So shipping bill, so whenever you're filing your GST1, if there's some mistake you have done in GST1, so you can always update that while you're filing your GST1. Another question from Vijay who is asking, what we do if we raise sales invoice under reverse charge and customer GST number cancel, how we report invoice in GST1? Okay, so Vijay, if you're saying that like there is a supplies, right, which you have made to a person, so here see there is two important part which we should understand. When it comes to reverse charge liability, right, that will be applicable, right, only when the recipient is registered. If recipient is unregistered, then this transaction will not be even covered under reverse charge because whenever we look into the rules which is given or the law which is given in respect to the reverse charge, right, that will be paid only when this person, the recipient, is actually covered and or is actually registered. So if that person is registered, then yes, definitely that person is going to pay the taxes. But if that person is unregistered or the registration has been cancelled, right, I will be considering that person as an unregistered. In that case, you yourself will become liable to pay the taxes. So in such case, I would say you should only pay the taxes if that person has cancelled his like registration and that person has become unregistered. Another question is from Guru Sharan who is asking if we can just share the notification where we have claimed total ITCs for 2B and reverse temporary. Yeah, Guru Sharan, definitely. For now, I can just tell you the notification number. Maybe you can even download that from the government portal. And I would suggest you should also go with a circular, right? So there was also a circular which was issued, and you should definitely go with that because that actually clarifies. Because if you look at the notification, it's a very generic line, but when you go into the circular, right, it specifically explains that you have to first add on and then you have to reverse it. And for the notification, I have just pinged on the chat box. Maybe it's a notification number 14 oblique 2022, in like on which was issued on 5th July 2022. Now, I could see there's another question from Arun who is asking if vendor file invoice under reverse charge and same was auto reflected in your GST 3B in RCM, but we have not received, then is it mandatory to discharge the liability? So, Arun, see, even if you have not received, right? So, again, it comes to it if as per the time of supply, right? There is a liability, you have to discharge the liability. If the liability is not there as per the time of supply, then you have to pay in the month when it is when you are actually liable to pay the taxes under the reverse charge. So we have to see the transition and accordingly we have to see whether the reverse charge liability has to be paid or not. Another question from Nishant is asking what should be the treatment from extra ITC in 2B for which bill is not received or irrelevant for us. So, Nishant, see, here again we have to see whether I am going to claim the ITC in the future month for them or for that particular invoices or not. So, if you feel that you may receive the invoices, so you may receive the goods in the future, in such case, you should just show that in 4A5 and 4B2, right? So that in future you can always reclaim that ITC in respect of that invoice. So it's always suggested that in respect of the invoices which is appearing in your GST 2B and you are not sure of, right? You're not sure of whether I have to claim the ITC in that particular invoices in the same month or not. Just show that value in table number 4A5 and also do a temporary reversal under table number 4B2. So that is how we should show that transaction. And maybe in the month of October, right, like next year October month, when you now finally don't know, I don't have to claim that ITC, then you can again put that value in table number 4A5, put that value in table number 4, I would say 4D1, and at the same time show that value in table number 4B1, so that you have moved that information from your permanent reversal, so temporary reversal to the permanent reversal. So I think I have covered most of your queries, and still in case I was not able to answer some of your query, I would just say if you can just mail us at gstsupport@cleartax.in, so clear.in, so we will be happy to answer you over there. With this, thank you very much for joining the session, and I think you have also recommended on some of the topics where we can take the session. So we'll also have the session on the topics which is suggested by you, and if you have not filled in the feedback form, I would suggest if you can just fill in that, where you can even talk about the topics where we can take the session so that it will be helpful for everyone. Thank you very much.